Tough questions, honest answers, real talk with the City of Oshawa.
Hi, everybody. It's Dan Carter, the mayor for the great city of Oshawa, the host of Real Talk, and I'm excited to welcome you to this unique podcast that I hope will inspire authentic conversations, take on topics that are important to you. My hope is that we'll address the issues that are impacting our province and our country, from affordability to challenges in the housing market, homelessness, healthcare, the opiate crisis, education, political environment, and those tariffs that everybody seems to be talking about. So I know that our guests over the next year will bring different ideas and different perspectives to the issues that we're facing. So why don't we get started with today's guest? Today, I welcome Dr. Elaine Popp, the president of Durham College, named the president in January of 2024. Dr. Popp, good to see you. Great to have you here.
Lovely to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Was it 2024 you were named El Presidente?
I was January 22nd, 2024, which happened to coincide with the day that the federal government, through the IRCC, Immigrations, Refugees, Citizenship Canada, announced some significant changes to the international student program.
You know, you and I have a very similar kind of start to our leadership roles. In 2018, General Motors let me know that they were closing. When you started yours, a lot of changes on the federal provincial side that really it was shock and awe. How did you deal with that right off the bat? Like, there's significant changes, both financially and in regards to what you were really walking into.
Yeah, it was certainly wasn't going in with eyes wide open right away. And it took a while to really realize what the 35% cap on international student enrollment was going to look like in the college sector, because it became much more significant than just the 35% reduction. As we saw over the years, it was closer to, for across the province, closer to 65% or so reduction in international students. So it wasn't just the first change that they made on January 22nd, 2024, but throughout the 2-year period, really, frequent changes, abrupt changes, without warning, without consultation. And so it kept us on our toes. And it kept us kind of like during the pandemic, needing to pivot and reimagine what we were doing and how we were doing it.
A lot of people will tune into this podcast because a lot of times we talk about leadership. So I want to kind of just talk about that, because these were very challenging times as a leader of this organization and now facing these major challenges. As a leader, how do you deal with that? How do you start to deal with that? And how do you not only control your own emotions, your own kind of thought process, but you also understand that you're responsible for hundreds of employees and thousands of students that are going to be directly impacted by this?
Definitely we're relying on a lot of resilience and adaptability, being able to pivot and react to the information that you know at any given point in time, realizing the decision you're making today may not be the decision that you make 24 or 48 hours later as more information is learned, but that you need to stay flexible. You need to stay positive, right? I am an optimist by nature, and I think that does help. And I think, the people that do work around me, and I have an exceptionally strong team as well, we lean into, remaining positive, looking forward, not looking back, and what do we need to do next?
And I'm presuming, because I know you work out on a regular basis, so I imagine a lot of time on the elliptical at the same time, right? So that does help, doesn't it?
It certainly does. I do like to say you always have time for the things you put first. And so this morning, got on my bike for 30 minutes, because I know today is going to be one of those days. There's not another point of time to get on it, but it does help, right? Exercising does help with stress levels and keeps you level-headed and helps prepare you for the day.
One of the things that I've observed from your leadership too is that you have been very level all the way through these challenges, non-emotional in regards to what the devastating effect is. And you were blessed in one way that your international student body wasn't as strong as some of the other colleges that had depended upon international students tremendously. But it still had a significant impact on your organization. But you stayed very calm throughout the whole process. And I always say moments like that are when words matter, not only internally, but externally. Would you agree with that statement?
Oh, 100%. And, Dan, I have to say, the fact that we knew you were rallying behind us gave us that support, that feeling that, okay, people know. And you've articulated your understanding very well of the situation that Durham College was in. We lost $67 million in revenue in a heartbeat. And I think by being able to stay level-headed, it allows you to think more creatively, think more, okay, what is the right solution? What is the right way out here? But, you pulled together leaders from the other post-secondary institutions in the region. You sat around the table. You took the time to listen, to get to know what the situation was for us specifically, because it really did differ across the different post-secondary institutions in Ontario. Each college had its own unique set of financial challenges. Each college had its own runway until they hit their own financial cliff. And, we really did appreciate that.
You had to make a lot of tough decisions, too, at the same time. And knowing that your style is very personable in regards to relationship building with your team, that must have been a difficult period of time for you to also go through, because it was affecting the people that are directly working for you or working for the students that come to your college.
Whenever we did have to communicate a change in our workforce, so make some workforce reductions, we tried to do so by considering all other possibilities first, and so that we would impact the fewest number of people and we would impact them only when necessary. And so we considered we looked under all rocks for additional revenue generation opportunities, ways to be more efficient, ways to save, where we could pull back. But yes, we did have to have some employee reductions, unfortunately, which it does hit you hard. I think that's the hardest thing you can do as a leader, is to make those types of tough decisions. But ultimately, you're doing it for the financial sustainability of the college.
The one thing I learned out of our conversation with yourself and the other post-secondary education is how complex the formula of post-secondary is. And I didn't really understand it. And there's so many different elements and so many different measurements in it. Throughout your conversations and advocating and educating both local politicians and provincial politicians, have you been able to kind of put your concerns on a place where they can clearly understand that the actions and the decisions they make have huge complications and impacts on people that they may not be fully aware of how it affects colleges and universities like yourself?
I have to admit that we, as a system, as a sector, came together and determined what our key messages were going to be. And as a system, we stuck to those key messages. And I do feel the advocacy we did as Durham College ourselves, as myself, as well as the Ontario sector through Colleges Ontario, were able to deliver that common voice. And it did land. And we were listened to, and it was realized that colleges are needed. Colleges are part of Build Ontario. Colleges are a main part of that in order to protect and build the province.
You're playing a really important part right now as Canada is facing some of the challenges outside of our own control. And so really not only preparing the next workforce, but also making sure that we're able to have the people to be able to do the things the Prime Minister has talked so much about, which is really Canada's desire to create its own pathway. You guys are playing a really important role right now to be able to keep Canada's economy moving forward. Does the federal and provincial government now understand that colleges play a really important part, especially right now?
We build that workforce of tomorrow. Yeah. So if we're going to need to feed us, fuel us, and defend us, then the workers that you need to do those things are over 50% of them are college grads. Over 50% of the workers in nuclear, in mining, in the energy sector, in healthcare come from college programs. At Durham College alone, we produce 2,600 workers that are going to be like graduates that are going to be workers in those specific disciplines a year.
And when you look at the Prime Minister talking about, or the Premier talking about infrastructure projects and how we really have to kind of look at being more productive. And by the way, when we talk about productivity, I think this is where people get it wrong. it's not that our people aren't willing to work hard or they don't put the time in. Productivity comes down to efficiencies, innovation, investment, strategic investments in regards to how to do things more efficient, those kind of things. That's when we talk about productivity. But when you're talking about infrastructure, especially your students will play a significant role in regards to helping us weather this storm that is this trade battle that's going on right now.
Yeah, 100%. And, look at the infrastructure projects that we have going on in the Durham region, from what's going on with our refurbishment, our nuclear facilities. We've recently done the 407 expansions. We've got the business park being built up by the college there. I can't remember the number of new homes that the Premier has committed to building in the next several years. All of those projects require
skilled trades.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's incredible. And you look at what's happening with GO Train and the expansion here, the expansion on the 401, the 407, our ports and our airport, it plays a significant role. So talk about what's transpired. You've faced the storm, you've had to make tough decisions, but recently I think you've had some success in regards to the government clearly understanding that they need to take a different pathway. So could you take us through that if you don't mind?
Yeah. Minister Quinn is Minister of Colleges, Universities, Research Excellence and Security. We like to give that the abbreviation of MCURS. He announced a $6.4 billion investment into post-secondary. And so that's for the colleges, the universities, and the Indigenous institutes in Canada. We haven't seen that size of investment for over 30 years. I guess McGuinty would have been the last time that we saw that size of an investment. And this is still bigger even than that. And that investment comes really through a couple main avenues. So the weighted funding units, and you acknowledged earlier that the way colleges are funded gets complicated quickly. But the bulk of the funding that we will benefit from comes from an increase in the weighting of each funding unit that comes towards the college. There's also an increase to our base funding per FTE, full-time equivalent. And there's also some special purpose money for growth in areas that are provincial priorities. So such as your healthcare and your trades and your anything that's going to help to build and protect Ontario.
Are you pleased about these kind of investments? And is this the end of it, or is this the beginning of what's necessary in regards to us really facing what awaits us in the future?
It is a tremendous first step forward, and it definitely lays the foundation for us to be able to continue to produce that talent pipeline that the province depends on. Minister Quinn acknowledged himself that he does expect further efficiencies to be realized by the colleges and the universities. That's not to say that we're not already efficient. We are. We've recently gone through an audit, the Efficiency and Accountability Fund audit that the province funded. So we know where we can lean a little bit further into efficiencies, but it is expected that we continue to look at new ways to do things, to innovate, to be, to make sure that we are going to be able to continue to produce that talent pipeline that the province is depending on.
As you move forward, I know that post-secondary is going to play such a significant role in regards to the development of the future of Canada. What do you see where we need to be, where we're not today in regards to post-secondary education? I know you've undertaken, a matter of fact, been ahead of the curve, I think, in AI, in cybersecurity, and some of the technologies that go on. But what do you foresee as where you need to be moving forward so that our productivity is we're more innovative, and we really can compete at a higher level around the world?
Yeah, so technology adoption is definitely one of the things that we're focusing on, and that is in terms of the types of programs that we're offering. So you named a couple of programs that we've recently launched. It's the applied research that we're doing, and of course we have an applied research center in the AI Hub and cybersecurity as well. And it's even just incorporating it into how we work and how we teach, teach our students, right? So
yeah, I guess that's going to change dramatically too, because it has the interaction has to be different, right?
And you need their learning outcomes when they graduate so that they can go into industry and not just have the credential, but be career ready.
Right.
And so that industry businesses are expecting people to be able to use AI. They want to realize those efficiencies. And so it's making sure your curriculum contains what the students are going to need as they become graduates as well.
One of the things Durham College has been very successful at is making sure that graduates are able to go from graduate into a role into employment. And you've really kind of married that up. That's been a philosophy of Durham College for a long time, is making sure that they're career ready. And you guys have really built a pride in regards to that. And that's one of your foundational pieces to make sure, correct?
That's right. So that the competency is there as you graduate. So over 80% of our students do engage in some type of experiential learning or work integrated learning experience. And that happens in all different types of forms, depending on the program, the discipline that you're coming from. It might be with Teaching City Oshawa, for example. We also do it through our students working with our applied research partners through our 5 centers of applied research on campus. We have a spa program where students in the spa get to work on real clients that are coming in from the public. We have students in our Center for Food that get to either be culinary students and cook for the public, or hospitality students and serve the public, so front and back of the house. So it's building in that experience they can put on a resume and prove they don't just hold that credential, but they have that competency. They are job ready.
It's amazing because when you look at your, I'm going to call it agriculture, but it's your food
and farming
program, and of course Bistro 67. By the way, if you haven't gone to Bistro 67, the food is outstanding, and the service is great. And if you get a chance, it's a very unique experience. But the agricultural component is a really interesting part, because as we face climate change, as we see the world changing dramatically, agriculture is going to play a real big part in regards to the next 20, 50 years. If you look at Durham Region, especially, we have a large agricultural community, but agriculture is changing dramatically. How we grow things, how we maintain the lands, how technology and AI come in. I didn't know this. Some of the combines are actually run with AI, and they actually get readings off of how much yield they're getting and soil condition, all those kind of things. So you guys are well positioned in regards to dealing with not only climate change, but how you're going to feed us.
Yeah, food sustainability is a huge part of what we do as well. And our Barrett Center for Innovation in Sustainable Urban Agriculture certainly does contribute to that research, right? And it's through our Barrett Center that we're showing that you can replicate these small urban farms and be able to have very high yields and be able to grow a wide variety of crops. And so that we can be self-sustainable.
It's funny you bring that up, because a lot of farms nowadays, they say you need 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000. When I was growing up, if you had 5 acres or 2 acres, you could farm on that land and be very productive. So what you're talking about is really kind of utilizing what we have to be able to maximize the return on what's coming.
Yep. And, we have hoop houses, we have greenhouses. We try to show container farms that food can be grown in a wide variety of ways, and you can have high yields. And so if you're working with just a balcony to grow stuff, or you've got a backyard, or whatever space you have, you can be productive.
It's funny. My parents were born in 1915 when I was born, and where we lived at the time. My father, when he returned from the war, got 2 acres of land on the War Measures Act. And one of the things that he always thought, coming through the Great Depression, through the Spanish flu, through the First World War and the Second World War, was as long as you had land, then you would never go hungry again. We bypass that time and think, oh yeah, that was back then. But really, when you're talking about sustainability in regards to family and being healthy, vibrant, and productive, you're also talking, and you highlighted it, about even in small spaces, we can create spaces where people can have the opportunity to provide for themselves. I think that's a really important point not to skip over. You've been in education a long time. Do you still get excited by it? I mean, there's a lot of changes and a lot of hurdles, but do you still get excited about it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, our purpose at Durham College is transforming lives, building careers, and enriching communities. And the amount of energy from just seeing the life of one student transformed is enough to keep me going for a year.
It's amazing. I've been on campus in the summertime and it's very quiet, and then you go in September and October, November. It is very energetic to be around, and it's wonderful to be able to see. You're still getting a certain amount of interest from other countries in regards to students coming to Durham College?
Yeah, certainly not like we used to.
Yes.
We have seen close to the provincial average of 70%. I think we're at 68% decline in international students now studying with us. But, we have a strong domestic enrollment. Our total enrollment is just over 11,500 students, with 10,000 being domestic and the remainder made up from international students. We have over 60 countries still represented on campus, and we are seeing strong interest in some of the developing markets wanting to come and study.
Elaine, how important, and I want to just grab onto this point just for a moment, because there's a lot of debate in regards to, foreign students and people coming from around the world to be educated here. How important is that, not only for the students that are domestic students, that they are exposed to different cultures, different foods, different languages, different thought processes? How important is that in regards to the culture of the organization?
Oh, it's so important, Dan. We are in a world now where globalization is ever increasing, and being able to understand different cultures and being exposed and working with different cultures, whether you're a student or when you leave the college and graduate and go on and get a job, it's part of what we hope to do, right? It's part of experience that we hope to provide to our domestic students.
I know that we're running out of time, but I know that many of these students may be coming from parts of the world that they have different challenges. That may be what we've talked about, agricultural-based or food-based, about water management in some countries, waste development, about building sustainable communities, all those kind of things. So having their firsthand experiences from their own personal experiences and sharing it with you, I would imagine that's got to be a huge benefit, not only to the students, but also to the faculty.
Yep. And we've also we do focus on the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, or the SDGs, which are some of the things that you've just been listing there. And we focus on trying to bring about improvements and do our part to help contribute towards the SDGs through an organization known as Colleges and Institutes Canada, or CICAN. We take part in a lot of international project work where we take what we know and we help share it with other countries, whether it be curriculum for the delivery of programs that will help develop their talent pipeline needed in their own country. So it works both ways, both bringing the knowledge here and us being able to share the knowledge overseas.
It's an amazing journey that you've been on. I know that, like I say, starting in 2024, and the challenges you faced right away, the decisions you've had to make, work on really kind of stabilizing and letting people know that we'll be okay and the future awaits us, I think you've done a tremendous job at that, and I congratulate you on it. I always enjoy our conversations. I think you're doing a tremendous job. I know that you'll come back and see us again and bring us up to date. I'm glad to hear that Minister Quinn made that announcement and made the investment. So that's great news, and it's wonderful to be able to see. And your student body continues to grow. And I see the pictures from 1967 and what it looks like today. Not even close. I mean, it's changed so much. The campuses are beautiful. And thank you and congratulations on all the work. And like I say, I look forward to our next conversation. And by the way, if you're enjoying this conversation and want to hear more, subscribe to Real Talk Oshawa. You can get that on Spotify or Apple. Episodes are released on a monthly basis. So let's keep the conversation going. I thank you so much for joining us. Till next time, I'm Dan Carter. Do me a favor, keep the conversation going.